Hey friends.
Hello.
Cheers.
Happy hour.
It's our second happy hour coffee chats with you guys.
Whoop, whoop.
Yay, and it's Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth to all of you guys out there. If you're
Happy
not sure.
Juneteenth.
Yeah, if you're not sure what that is, it is the celebration of Black freedom.
Yep.
And this is something that Noah celebrated in prison. So he learned about it 7 years ago. And how did you guys celebrate?
So when I got to Milan, Michigan in September of 2013, my first Juneteenth then was in the following year, June 19th, 2014. And every holiday, so I didn't realize there's so many holidays. And one thing about Juneteenth,
he knows about all of them.
Well, one thing about Juneteenth is it's not celebrated as a national holiday, which is bull crap. Mm-hmm. And I get to prison and I realize all these different Hispanic heritages, all these Juneteenth, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
And we celebrate them with good food.
Like all the events.
Yeah.
So,
and that was always something I bragged home about was one thing they know how to do is they know how to make good food for the holiday meals.
And you guys, for holidays, because Noah worked in the kitchen, so they got to choose what they wanted to eat and make and come up with fun and different concoctions.
Each culture on whatever holiday is, they would bring in a core group of that culture and ask them, what do you want us to make?
Yeah, which is fun.
That was awesome.
So last week was our first one, and we had asked you guys if there's anything you want us to talk about, and we got a ton of good feedback, whether that was in comments or direct messages. So over the course of time when we do these chats with you, we are going to answer them. And one that we're going to address today is, what was the question?
So someone reached out. They had a friend or a family friend who they weren't quite certain if they were going through a hard time or not, and they wanted to know, what do they do? How do they reach out?
Yeah.
Is it worth reaching out? And if they do reach out, what does that process look like? And what would be a good first step? So one thing, when you're given advice, I mean, it's kind of hard, but what I can say is reaching out in one way or another is really all you can do. And whether they accept that hand or whether they say, no, I'm not ready, at least you tried. And then when they are ready, they might remember that.
Yeah.
And they might,
and
because we went through this.
Yeah, and for us as a family, we all went through a lot of different emotions and circumstances. And like I constantly was saying to Noah, what if I would have done this? Or what if I would have done this? Would that have helped? And he always said, no, it wouldn't have because, well,
I mean, she did.
Yeah.
The phone call. I remember being in my downtown Minneapolis apartment when you called me and she asked me flat out, are you selling drugs? What did I do?
You lied to me.
I lied straight to her face. Not straight to her face. It was over the phone.
Yeah.
There wasn't FaceTime yet at that point. But
he tried to make a joke about it.
Yeah, that's what I do. I make a joke about it. And it wasn't appropriate. It wasn't the right thing to do. I said to her, why? Are you looking for some? And I thought that was funny. She said, I'm frickin' being serious. And I said, Morgan, come on. Am I selling drugs? That's crazy. I was selling drugs.
So for us, it's just the only advice we have is to absolutely let them know that you're there.
Yep.
There's probably not much you can do. Definitely don't go into, for me and for our whole family too, I always say it was a lot. I went through a lot of the same emotions I did when our dad died. Like I was happy, I was pissed off, I was mad, I was sad, I was embarrassed, I was angry. A lot of those different emotions. And one of the things I really did, I had to really remove myself from the situation as much as I could. And I listened to a ton of podcasts, a ton of books, which we have on our resource tab of Resilience to Reform.
Well, you don't want to come off wrong.
Yeah, because
you don't want to come off as being the enemy. At the same time, you don't want to over glorify and try to be their savior.
Yeah.
You just want to be there. And sometimes you might not be able to be there for the individual, but you might be able to be there for somebody close to the individual that needs your help even more, that is willing to accept your help.
And and one of the things too, I remember Noah always said, it was hard for me, even though I knew you guys were there as a family, to turn to you guys because you didn't know what I personally was going through, because none of us had done drugs. So that was one thing that always stood out to me too. But it's still, he knew that our family was there for him, and eventually when he did hit rock bottom, then
I reached out.
And
I reached out. The person I reached out to was Lynn, my kid's mother's dad, so Melrose's grandpa, and I just knew he wasn't going to judge me.
Yeah.
I knew he had said, if you need help, you can come live up here. Mm-hmm. But 1, you're going to get clean off that shit, and 2, you're going to get a job.
Yeah.
So I did.
So that's our advice.
Yep. Update
this week. What's been happening for you?
Woo! Phase 2, baby. So
he's been locked at home.
I've been locked
hasn't
down.
Been able to leave.
Yep. I went to 1 doctor's appointment. That's it. And now phase 2 means you can go look for employment. You can do religious services. You can do recovery-based AA meetings. I'm hoping that includes going to my sponsor's house. Mm-hmm. Just getting out of this environment for a while would be a breath of fresh air. I mean, as much as I love hanging on the back patio with my big sis
and mom,
I would and mom and Melrose, and I don't want to give off the impression that I'm not appreciative of where I'm at.
I keep asking him, I'm like, are you going crazy? Yeah, just being here. He's like, not at all.
Yeah.
Like, okay, good point.
And then
it's not prison.
And then you read a book like the one we're going to discuss today, and you really appreciate how good we have it.
Yeah. So we're going to dive into this book. Noah read it a couple years ago.
Yep, my brother Jesse, our brother Jesse, sent it to me while I was in prison. And recently I got out and I said, you want a good book to read, Morgan? Dive into this. That was last week.
So and I finished it in a week. It's super easy read. We thought it was really fitting to talk about today too, with the celebration.
And with everything that's going on today. In the recent past, systemic racism is forever present. Yeah.
So it's called The Sun Does Shine by Anthony Ray Hinton. It's one of Oprah's book club, and it's about, he was sentenced to death row for 35 years. He was released after 30 years, thanks to, what's his name? With the Equal Justice Initiative.
So he does it forward. His name's Brian Stevenson, and it's the Equal Justice Initiative, and he actually has a movie that came out on Brian Stevenson called Just Mercy, where Michael B. Jordan plays him. So this guy is just he's in it, man. It's very similar to the Innocence Project, if that's more of a recognizable name. But what they do is they find cases of people who've been wrongly accused. And Anthony Ray Hinton, if you look at how they convicted this guy, I mean, it makes you sick. They convicted him because he was a black guy in 1985.
Yeah.
So in 1985, he was falsely accused. 1, they just went into his mom's house, found a gun. The gun hadn't been fired in 25 years. They got a phony ballistics report, tacked it on, and then accused him off that. This was in Alabama. He was at work. His white supervisor, in one of these interviews I saw with Oprah, and I think it was on Good Morning America, he said he thought that was going to get him out right there, that he had a white supervisor, that was going to be some credibility, that this justice system would look at that, take his word for it, and let him off. And no, he also passed a polygraph test.
Yeah. And one of the things that stood out to me too was the supervisor, the guy standing in for him, made a comment how much he was getting paid to stand up for him, and he's like, I eat this for breakfast. So he just didn't care, which was
and he wasn't the only one that didn't care.
Right. Yeah.
This guy talked to his defense attorney. So this is the guy who's representing him, and he said, does it even matter if I'm innocent? And the defense attorney said, the bottom line is y'all always doing something. I mean, that right there is just crazy of the mindset that these people are in. Yeah, the detective, he said, if you didn't do it, one of your homies did. Another one of the law enforcement guys said, the reason we're going to convict you, whether you're innocent or whether you're guilty, is because you're black, the judge is white, the prosecutor is white, and it's going to be an all-white jury.
And I just want to read too how it starts, because this just sets the tone of the entire book. Just mind-blowing. There's no way to know the exact second your life changes forever. You can only begin to know that moment by looking in the rearview mirror. And trust me when I tell you that you never ever see it coming. Did my life change forever the day I was arrested, or did the life-changing moment happen even earlier? Was that day just the accumulation of a whole series of fatal moments, poor choices, and bad luck? Or was the course of my life determined by being black and poor and growing up in a South that didn't always care to be civil in the wake of civil rights? It's hard to say. And he goes back in the book, too, about just growing up and what that was like. He was an awesome baseball player. Him and his friend Lester would walk home from baseball every day, and it was a long walk, and anytime a car drove by, they had to jump in the ditch and hide. And that, I just had to put the book down for a moment, because I was just got
also Lester
sick.
The whole 30 years this guy was on death row, didn't miss a visiting weekend. We mentioned last week how important visiting is to inmates. Oh my gosh. This guy did not miss a visiting weekend. And so Anthony Ray Hinton did all 30 years on solitary confinement. I mean, you're not getting out in the yard, you're not getting your hour of rec, you're not, if you're getting your workouts, it's pull-ups on the bunk, and it's push-ups on the ground.
And when he got sentenced, he didn't talk for 3 years. He didn't talk to anyone, he didn't talk to himself. He went momentarily blind for a while. It's just we just highly recommend this book. It's super inspiring. And then to wrap it up too.
So one of the guys in the cells next to him that he built a relationship with, his name is Hayes. He was a white supremacist. And this guy was in prison for lynching and castrating a black kid. And I believe they said it was the first black guy, or the first white guy incarcerated, convicted for the killing of a black person in like 85 years, something like that. Is just insane. And so a big part of Anthony's message is forgiveness, not only redemption for himself, but how do you learn to forgive, and how do you learn to love, and how do you learn to stay positive and still make an impact, not only in your own life, but other people's lives while you're there. Well, he took this Hayes guy under his wing, and not only did he forgive him, which is unbelievable, but he taught him something. So what this, when it actually comes to being executed, you get two things. You get to pick your last meal, and you get your last words. This was his last words. The very people that raised me to hate are the very people that taught me to love.
In this book too, he talks so much about forgiveness and teaching how to love, and even reading it, I'm angry for him, and I cannot imagine forgiving at the level that he did, which was just opened my mind to a whole new perspective on things. And then I also just want to end with too, at the end of the book, he talks about, he says, statistically, 1 out of every 10 men on this list is innocent. And he has a list of all the names of people on death row in every state that are wrongly, and he said 1 of every 10 is wrongly convicted. Each has a family, a stories, and a series of choices and events that have led to a life spent in a cage. Read the names, every single one of them. Read the names. Do you know who is wrongly convicted? Do you know who is innocent? Read their names. My name was once on this list. But yeah. And
then on top of that, last week we talked about reparations. How about the state of Alabama apologizes to
they have yet to
Anthony
apologize
Ray.
Now that he's out free.
The mayor did embrace him and did apologize, but what about the people that convicted him? What about the people that put him away for no good reason? I think it's time for that.
Absolutely. So if you guys have read this book, let us know what your perspective are, your insights, your thoughts. Leave a comment below, send us a message. And I hope you guys are enjoying these chats as much as us. We'll be back next Friday, and we are going to be talking about We Are the Luckiest, another book that Noah and I have read.
Amazing.
The Surprising Magic of a Sober Life. And it's awesome. So we can't wait to chat more with you then. And we hope you guys all have a great weekend.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Did we do it? 15 minutes? Did
14,
we do it?
17.
Woo!